ask one of the producers, Del Bigtree.
Polly, come on down. Polly Tommy in the house? No? Someone run and grab Polly. Okay. We lost one.
This is a first. We've lost Polly.
First of all, wow, thank you all. Here she goes, here we go. Polly Tommy. First of all, thank you all for coming out. It's been an incredibly encouraging experience to see these packed houses everywhere we're going. Vaxxed is becoming a movement. And I think that is not just based on the fact that we've made this film, but so many people have laid, check. Hello?
It does.
So many people have laid the groundwork, I think, that's made Vaxxed what it is right now. There's been great movies. Many of you have fought for SB 277. I think that it was creating a groundswell, but now Vaxxed has penetrated the mainstream. And that was our goal from the beginning. It's happening. We are getting requests from all over the world, all over the nation for this film to be in theaters. It's very exciting. But all of this is made possible really because of the people that have been warning us for a very long time, and I want to give a shout out to those people. Will everyone with a vaccine-injured child or someone or family member that's suffering with autism please stand up? All right. You are the reason we're here. And for the rest of you sitting in the audience, when you see these numbers that stand up every night, we have to be extremely concerned. We have the worst epidemic in this nation and possibly the world. It's going to destroy us. It's going to destroy our economy. We're on the verge. This year alone, 100,000 children born will be diagnosed with autism. We're building cities of autistic children. They're going to be autistic adults. My 7-year-old and my 2-year-old are going to live amongst millions of autistic people in the United States. The CDC claims it costs $5 million to raise each one of these children. This will bankrupt us. So anyone that thinks this isn't your issue, this is destroying our schools. We are losing American exceptionalism. Our advanced classes are being replaced by classrooms filled with special needs. This has to stop right now. And all of these parents that just stood up have been telling all of us, warning all of us that there's an epidemic. And not only have they been discounted by our medical and scientific institutions, when they go to their doctors and say, this vaccine destroyed my child, I know it for a fact, they're told they need a psychiatrist. And if they continue on with their discussion about it, then there's threats that maybe your child, you're not ready to parent this child. This is the United States of America. We're threatening to take children away. We're forcing vaccinations on every child in this country. And the government, especially here in California, has just mandated that the government actually has say over our children and not the parents. This has got to stop. It's got to stop now. That's what Vaxxed is all about. Thank you for being here tonight.
So, how do you guys feel about that? And like, you can't put all this stuff back in the bag, right? Like, all this stuff that's been out is out, and then there's going to be new results. Like, how does that all intersect?
I'll tell you how we feel about it. We feel good about it.
Okay.
We feel good about it because, firstly, this story is about fraud at the CDC. And if they are going to go now and rake over the data that they originally had in 2001 in an attempt to exonerate a vaccine from causing autism, or to exonerate themselves for putting millions of American children at risk, then they are an utter disgrace and should go to prison. It will merely be a confirmation of everything that this film says. So if that happens, and it is a rumor, then that's the consequence for them. So please do not be disheartened. It is called data raking. It is compounding the fraud. When you are in a hole, you should stop digging. They are still digging.
And most importantly, we're not going to go away, and our children are not going to go away. And for every single day that this carries on, sadly, more and more babies are being damaged. So we are becoming more and more powerful every day. And ever since this vax has been out, I can see the parents calming out from the shamed place that we've been told that we have to be from our paediatricians and everybody else. So we are, trust me, becoming a very powerful force.
Yes, right here.
I have a medical science question. I'm wondering if the signal that you're seeing with the higher rate in African American boys, and then was it 700% increase in all children, depending on age? Is age a proxy for body size, or perhaps a different immune system, or does it really have to do with age?
It's an extremely good question. So that just the reason we put forward this hypothesis in the first place is that if you get natural infection with measles, then if you get it younger, say under the age of 1, your chances of a severe outcome from measles are much, much greater than if you get it over 1, when your immune system presumably is far more developed. So I think intuitively it is a function of an immune system that is becoming better able to cope with these infections. And historically, that's why mothers who got measles conferred very good immunity on their 1-year-olds up to 1 with passive immunity to protect them. That was natural herd immunity. What vaccines have done is taken away that natural herd immunity. So I think that age is a proxy for the immune system's development, but I think also what plays into that, they're giving the same dose of vaccine to children who may be completely different. One may be half the birth weight of the other. And yet they're not doing it on a dose per kilogram basis. They're just saying one size fits all. Clearly, that is totally inappropriate. So there may be many factors that play into this. And what they should have done here is a much bigger study to see if they could replicate the finding and answer the very question that you're asking. A gentleman there, then the lady behind.
My question would be for you. I'm sorry, for your name.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So you are a medical journalist, an investigative journalist. If I understood the film correctly, I think Mr. Wakefield's position on vaccines would be, of course, and I would agree, don't do the MMR, but I guess basically, if possible, spread them out singularly and particularly after like age 3, if I got your position correctly. Would your position concur with his, or I know you're a father because you said in the film you are, and so am I. Would your position be, would you prefer to basically not give any vaccines, which is a fair position, or would your position be, to give just isolated single vaccine? I guess, what is your position?
My position is that, as you said, I worked on the medical talk show for 6 years. I was under the impression that vaccines were being tested just like every drug we take is. I was shocked to find that they're being fast-tracked onto the market. They're not going through placebo-based long-term safety studies. I think it's incredibly disheartening to know that Grandpa's Viagra went through far more studies than the things that we're injecting right into the bloodstream of babies. I think what we've all learned in being a part, and specifically me because I'm newer to this than Andy and Polly, but this story is about the MMR. What we have is data and proof now that they've committed fraud on this study. But for me, it brings into question every study then. And I don't think any of us can be happy now until this job of testing vaccines is taken away from the CDC immediately. They've failed the American public and probably the entire world. It's the most important health agency in the world, and they are obviously committing fraud on these studies. So I won't be satisfied till we have a brand new testing body looking at all of these vaccines, how they test with each other, and looking at all the other diseases that we are skyrocketing in America. ADD, ADHD, MS, childhood leukemia, it goes on and on and on. We're one of the sickest nations now in the world. Okay? I'm just going to say that I will not continue with the schedule as it's laid out until I see appropriate testing done immediately, and that's what we're fighting for.
Lady behind, and then someone down here.
My question is, in all of this, I have seen all of the damage that all of these children have. What has been done on a deeper level, say with DNA, with cellular levels, and we have have parents, I'm going to be 73 this year. I have never had any vaccines, ever. But 3 of my siblings have. I'm the healthiest in my family. But how do these people who years ago, like my age and that, who got these vaccines, maybe because we got them singularly, how has that affected parents coming down the line with does DNA get damaged, does cellular level get damaged, as it has progressed getting worse and worse? I haven't heard a lot of, or seen a lot of, how that affects.
Right. The two sort of aspects to this question, let me try and answer by example. Thimerosal, the mercury that was in many of the vaccines, still in the flu vaccine being given to pregnant women and children of 6 months and older, absolute madness, causes disruption of methylation of DNA, and that can cause mutation, fragmentation of DNA, or at least mutation. So that in itself is a problem. And then in the real world, we see a series of studies coming out showing that older fathers are at greater risk of having children with autism. And at first that seems odd, sort of pejorative to, older fathers having babies, but it's not. In fact, the cells that are responsible for the production of sperm are permanent cells. And therefore, unlike cells that line the gut that you shed every day and they're replaced, they accumulate toxins. So if you are being given a lot of aluminum in vaccines or thimerosal, they will naturally accumulate in these permanent cell lines. And so that you can imagine that over time, as you get older, there is going to be cumulative damage to the sperm that are produced from those cells, and consequently older fathers may be at greater risk of having children with genetic aberrations. So there is a sound biological basis for it. Beyond that, has the work been done that should have been done? No.
So then the DNA and the cellular level will not be, once it's damaged, it's damaged, and it's going to be, I do know cells can replicate. I do know that. So can it get better if they change what they're doing?
It's a very good question. I don't know the answer. I'm not an expert, but there may well be someone here who can. The lady at the back in the middle. Sorry, you were first, and then the lady at the back in the middle. Yeah.
In all of your research, I have actually 2 questions, if that's all right. I'll try to make them quick. Have you heard of anyone bringing their children back from autism? I have.
Right here. I'm one of them.
Let me answer that one first. Okay, so when I got involved in this 20 years ago, and Polly will attest to this was a dead-end disease. Psychiatrist said, your kid is permanently damaged, put them in a home, forget about it, move on. That was clearly untrue. And when you approach this from a medical perspective, these children have a derangement in gut function, they have inflammation, they have dysbiosis, they have aberrant bacteria in their gut, they have malnutrition, and when you correct all of those things, you can make a huge difference to the well-being of these children. Can you completely recover them? Very, very rarely, but you do see it, and I think the younger you get to children, the greater the chances for getting that recovery. Can they lose diagnosis? Yes. Is it managed recovery? Do you have to keep them on the diet and all of these things? Yes, in my experience, but so much can be done. So ignore your doctors, ignore psychiatrists, trust your own intuition, find the right doctors, and get them back. Yes, lady in the middle there. Oh, sorry, you get another question very quickly.
Any media who are not bought, who we could really get the word out to, in a massive way.
Well, we're hunting for that. I will say, shockingly enough for me, we've had 2 really good interviews on Fox. We have another one tomorrow morning. We'll see how that goes. So far, Fox